All right, friends, so you saw what we were seeing in the opening scene. So let's get started on our April 2025 box number 54 of It's in the Box subscription. All right, so there's a lot going on in here. We're just going to unpack it and make our way through it. So you're going to have a bag of green moss. We're just going to set that aside. It's one of the very last things that we'll be using. And of course, all of your paints. Make sure that you have a hot glue gun ready, a cup of water, rinse water, and a napkin. Of course, you can use your box to mix your paint on, or you can use a paper plate like I have off to the side, and you're going to need a pair of scissors. All right, in addition to your paints, you have a paintbrush. You also have a yellow sponge and some white sponges. You have a super glue, of course. You have a hot glue stick to use with your hot glue gun. You have a container of 3 or 4 little teardrop glass beads. There are some vinyl, like plastic butterflies. And then your wood pieces, all right? So we're just gonna take all of this out of the box. I'm gonna set my box aside. You guys can use your box to paint on. And of course, your pieces probably came shrink wrapped. Mine are already opened. All right, and oh, I have baby wipes handy as well. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to lay this out and show you how this is built. So these two rectangular pieces here, they're about a 1 inch by about a 10 inch. Those are the back slats that's gonna hold your fence together. So we will use those last. Then you have 5 fence pieces. So 2 of these pieces have kind of a wavy edge. Those are your 2 outside pieces. And then the cut edge, the broken edge, is at the top. The other pieces are straight, so those will be your center pieces. And it doesn't matter where you put your center pieces in what order. That's up to you. So you're gonna have your 3 straight edged center pieces go in the middle, and then your wavy edges go on the outside left and right. Okay, you can't reverse these because the wavy edge would be in the inside, so it will make sense when you're building it. So this is how the fence is going to look. Get this up there. We are in our brand new studio. We have a brand new setup. Our screen is, it's a little bit different. Our setup's a little bit different. We've got a much smaller screen that we work with, which shouldn't make a difference, but it feels like it does, of course. So it's gonna take me a minute to get used to it. All right, so there's your setup there for those. And then your watering can with your Happy Spring word on it is gonna come up in the corner here and tip down like it's spraying water on your flowers. And then you have your flower pieces. So this piece here is a spacer at the top, right? So that's gonna make sense. It goes with the biggest daisy that's not connected to a stem. Now, I'm putting it on first, but it will actually have to be glued last. And you'll see why in a second. And then you've got the rest of your flowers here. And these can go anywhere you want them to go, in addition to the big flower can go anywhere you want, but you're probably going to want it towards the right-hand side of the fence. And then let's see, because see how it will sit on top of these other 2 flowers. So I think that this is the best placement for them, because it will allow this one that's raised up off to be supported by the 2 on the side there. Okay, I had a little camera adjustment there. All right, so keeping that in mind, this, and of course you'll have a picture you can look at, so you won't have to remember this placement. You can actually look at your picture as you do it, but everybody knows by now, we're 54 boxes in, that I always use the demo piece for the ultimate instruction pictures. I don't make 2 of these anymore. We just started getting too much stuff. I used to do 2, but it's just, Melissa and I have so much stuff, it's hard to keep all of this stuff make more projects than we need. Okay, so this is the overall placement. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of my flowers back off, and I'm going to start painting. And we're gonna work on everything all at once, so there's gonna be a lot going on. I'm going to use my white paint, and I'm going to use the soft side of my yellow sponge. And I'm gonna paint each of these fence pieces. Now you could do your fence brown if you want, like brown with a baby wipe to give it a stain finish, but I like the idea of a garden fence being white. You always think of like a white picket fence. So I'm just gonna use the soft side of that yellow sponge, and I'm gonna paint all of these pieces. They're all gonna need 2 coats, so I'm just gonna keep working through them. I'm also going to paint the center of all of my flowers because I want to paint my center yellow, and we all know by now that a foundation of white paint underneath a yellow paint makes the yellow go on much smoother, and it makes it much brighter, and it also gives a much easier coverage. All right, so I am going to just go ahead and finish putting paint on these fence panels in the center of my flowers, and I'm going to speed the video up so you can skip to the end of this set. Make sure you do 2 coats, and we'll see you back here when your white paint has 2 coats. Okay, all of our pieces now have 2 coats on them for the fence. We're just gonna set them aside, and we're gonna start painting everything else. So just push them out of your way. I'm gonna start with my watering can, and I'm going to actually use the same yellow sponge because I already have white paint on it, and I wanna make my watering can a light gray. So I'm just gonna grab a tiny little bit of that black paint. That's probably more than I actually needed because I just want to make it kind of like a pale gray, almost like it was galvanized. And then I'm just going to swipe the paint on because I already have so much white in my sponge. I don't really need to put any more on it this time. However, if you didn't have a lot of white paint left in your sponge and you need to put some more in there, you can do that. You could also use one of your wedges. I would just cut it in half. Sorry guys, out of the camera there. Okay, so there's my light gray. It is actually pretty light, so I'm gonna just add a little bit more black and darken that up just a little bit because it was a little lighter than I wanted. Okay, so there's our light gray watering can. Now, while it's still semi-wet, it's not very wet, but it's wet enough. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take the same sponge. I'm gonna add the tiniest little bit of black to it. I'm gonna pounce it on my table cover just to work it in a little bit so it's not so sharp. And then I'm just gonna come in and I'm just gonna pounce it around because I kind of want it to be like it's banged up metal. I don't want the black to be sharp. I want it kind of to be soft. So when I'm pouncing, I'm kind of like just blending that in. And I'm going to do it again. A little bit more black, work it into my sponge on my table cover or my box. And I'm just coming around my watering can, kind of darkening it up a little bit. That one got a little light there. I got too much white for my sponge, so now I gotta come back in and fix that. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so there's our watering can. And we're just gonna set that aside to dry and until we need it. And then we're gonna work on painting our flowers. Right, so our stems need to be painted green. I'm gonna take my scissor and I'm gonna cut my sponges up the middle because I do not need a full sponge for any of this. And in fact, I might cut these in half again because it's just a waste. And if there's anything we learned in the studio, it's that we go through a ton of sponges. And our hands are always full of paint, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. So I'm gonna first I'm gonna open my yellow. I'm gonna take one of my sponges and just get a little bit of yellow paint on it and pounce it in from my table cover. And then I'm gonna grab all my little centers and I'm gonna paint those yellow. And they probably are only gonna need this one coat because I did that white foundation and it will usually let the yellow cover like perfectly. If you feel like you need a second coat on yours, by all means, let them dry and then go ahead and put a second coat on them. So anything else you decide to paint yellow, just paint a foundation of white on it first. These are the only things I am painting yellow though. Okay. Next, like I said, we're gonna paint our stems. So I'm gonna open the green and I'm just gonna use another of my little quarter wedges here. And I'm going to paint the stems. Now on the spacer one, you can just go ahead and paint that entire thing. You don't need to worry about the little round part that says spacer on it. And your green will need 2 coats. Now for these guys here, you're gonna wanna use the brush when you get closer up here to the flower, okay? So use the brush when you get up here. But for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just do the stem. And then I'll grab the brush. You might have to soak your brush in water for a second to release the bristles. The bristles come glued, but just a 10-second soak in the water will unglue those bristles. And then just come up with your brush and paint your stem in there. Just like that. And you can do that to the other 3 as well while you got your brush in your hand. And you're probably going to want to use the brush to do your flowers as well at that little spot, so make sure that you clean your brush off. Okay, I'm going to just soak my brush for a second and I'm going to go back and I'm going to finish these stems. And they're each going to need 2 coats, so we're going to go ahead and put 2 coats on everything. Come back to our first one. We put our paint on so thin that it's dry by the time we finish our series of stuff that's painted the same color. All right, so pick up your brush again. And then come back in to each of your flowers and paint up in that area that where the flower starts. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for spring. It is still cold and I'm over it. So I want to be painting all the flowers. All right, so once again, we're going to come back with our second coat on these. Okay. All right, and we are done with that green. So I'm just gonna stick that away. I think. All right, so next we're gonna work on our flowers. I'm done with my yellow. I'm gonna put that away as well. Next we're gonna work on our flowers, and I'm doing my flowers a combination of these three colors. This teal, well, it's actually Island Breeze, Passion Purple, and Flamingo, but I'm also going to use my white in there because I want shades of that. Now, you can get as detailed as you want or as simple as you want. It's totally up to you, whatever you decide. But I am going to make my big flower this Island Breeze color. And I'm gonna grab just a little bit of white on my sponge at the same time. Because I like to get a little fancy with my shading. And in order to do that, I need some variations of the color. So this guy is just gonna be a little teeny bit muted. Not much, just a little. All right, we're gonna let that sit for a second. We're gonna come back and we're gonna give him another coat, but we're going to just move on. I'm gonna make this guy purple, and this guy's gonna be the whole purple. I'm not gonna lighten him up at all. So I'm just gonna go in here and get this guy painted purple. And I'm gonna use the same sponge to paint a light purple, but this guy's gonna need 2 coats. So before I move on to the light purple, I'm gonna go ahead and do a different color flower. All right, so for coat 1's on that guy. We're just gonna set him aside for a second. And move over to, let's see, we're gonna do this guy. I'm gonna do my outside flower, so that's the one that's the furthest to the left. I'm gonna do him with this pink, and I'm not going to white it down at all. I'm gonna use that straight. So once again, I am going to do 1 coat and move to a different color while it dries. And so I'm actually able to get right up to the edge of that with my sponge. If you can't, go ahead and use your brush. But for me, that I can swipe right up next to it. Okay, so we're gonna let that guy dry for a second. We're gonna move back and do the second coat on our purple flower. Just swipe your sponge right up next to it. All right, there's your purple one. That one's just gonna stay purple like that. We're just gonna move him to the side so he's out the way. But I've got my purple sponge, so I am going to grab this guy here. And I'm gonna make him a lighter shade of purple. So I'm just gonna keep this sponge. I'm gonna dip into the white, and then I'm gonna come back over and swipe it on. And then just add more purple and more white as you need to. Okay, and then I'm going to come over to my straight pink flower, and I'm going to put another coat of the straight pink on that. All right, and then I'm going to take that same pink, dip it in white, and come over to my last flower and swipe on a light pink. You can add more pink and more white as needed. Okay, so there's my light pink. I'm gonna set that sponge aside. I'm gonna come back over to my Island Breeze, and I'm gonna give this one more coat. It's pretty light, so I'm just gonna dip into the Island Breeze, get some of that on the flower and off the sponge, and then I'm gonna grab a little bit of white again, and then go back over it. All right, so all of my flowers now have paint on them. Let's push them up so you can see them. And now I've got to do this Happy Spring. I'm going to do this one in the Island Breeze as well. So I'm just going to bring my same sponge I'm holding back into my Island Breeze. And I'm just going to pounce that on there. It's going to need 2 coats. Okay. We'll come back to the spring. We're going to do it again. And then back to the Happy and one more coat on the Happy. Okay. I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to pick back up my yellow sponge that has my black and gray on it. I don't think I need to add any more to it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and hit the edges of my fence just slightly to give it a little bit of an aged look. So I'm just grabbing the edges and swiping. And I'm going to do the same at the top. And see, it's just the slightest little bit. And I'm going to do that with each one. I probably won't use the brown at all for anything. Okay, that's it. That's all we're doing on that. All right, so now back to our flowers. We kind of got to decorate them a little bit. So this is where our brush is going to come in handy. Get your brush cleaned out. So on my purple one, I'm going to take just straight white on my brush, just a little teeny bit. And I'm going to come into each of these leaves and do a sweep out. Don't think too much about it. Don't overthink it. All right, so that's it for that guy there. On the light pink, I am going to take the wrong end of my paintbrush and dip it into my white. I'm going to do little dots around the outside edges. This is going to take forever, so I will shut up and speed it up. Okay, it's cute. It takes a while, but it's cute. All right, we'll set that one aside. On the pink one, I'm going to take my pink sponge that I used, and I'm going to grab some of the straight pink, not whited down, and I'm just going to pounce it into my sponge. I'm going to go around the outside edges and just get some darker pink on there. Don't overthink it. Just darken up those edges. Okay, you just see it's just slightly darker. And then to this one here, I'm gonna go back to my original sponge, get some more of that teal Island Breeze color on. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna brush the edges. I don't wanna get too far down. And then I'm gonna take, let's see, I'm gonna take my yellow sponge. You guys might wanna get a clean white sponge, but if you wanna do that, I'm gonna grab some white and then I'm gonna pounce most of it off. And then I'm just gonna come through the edges and grab, just grabbing just that edge of the petal and swiping down just a little bit. Okay, see? And that's it for that one. And then we've got our purple left, our straight purple. And I feel like purple needs some white on it. So let's do the same thing we did with the other purple. We're gonna dip it in white. And let's have some fun though. Let's do an outside loop. Let's go around here and then let's give it a little curly. There we go, that's cute. You can do that. All right, so we're starting in the center and we're pulling out around the edge. Just do a circle. Don't worry about it if you lose it. It's all right. Doesn't have to be perfect. Let's do the same thing all the way around. Cute, cute. Okay. And then we have, that's it. That's all there is to paint. Okay, let's clean up our paint and get our space ready to glue everything together. All right, so to glue my fence, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna flip everything over. So starting with this guy, I'm gonna flip it over and move it to the left. Flip over, move to the left. Okay, just keep doing that so it's flipped completely over and it's actually where everything needs to go. All right, get it on your table and get it lined up. You can use the edge of your thing that holds the piece of wood that holds it all together to line the bottom edge up. You see how I'm doing that? I'm just putting that against it and making sure they're all flush to the bottom. And then I'm gonna take my glue. I'm just using leftover from the studio, but you've got a nice full one in your kit. I'm gonna run it along one piece of the piece of rectangle of wood that binds them together. And I'm just gonna set it on the back and I'm gonna push it down. I'm not over top of mine. I can't see if mine is straight or not. You should stand over top and make sure that yours is straight. I'm just relying on the feel of the edges. I think I might be slightly crooked, but I can't get over top or else all you would see is my head in the video. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. Just a line of glue. I'm gonna flip it over more towards the top. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, and then I'm gonna flip it over and there's my assembled fence. All right. So now we're gonna start gluing things on, but you know how we feel about pre-placement. You're gonna dry fit everything. Okay, so put everything where it's gonna go. And then we will start assembling because you don't want to mess anything up. Once you put glue on it, there's no going back. Okay, so this is where each of our flowers are gonna go. Move them to where you want them. Okay, and then we're gonna start gluing. Of course, now this guy has to be glued last. Well, we actually have to make sure that our flower centers are gonna fit. So we'll cross that bridge in just a second. All right, so let's go ahead and put this guy on. We're gonna just run some glue down the stem and we're gonna put this on and we're just lining the bottom edge up to the bottom edge of the fence. And then we're gonna do the same thing with each of these guys. Most of the time glue in the studio is glued shut, the caps. So if you're noticing I have no cap on my glue, that's why. Because the girls, they glue the caps shut and then they just throw them in the discard bin and I get them out and use them up. So that's why there's no cap on this one, because it was glued shut. All right, and then our last flower, which I think I'm out of glue in this one. And I'm gonna push this one to the edge. Mine is going to hang off the edge just slightly. All right, I'm going to take my big flower, and it gets the big center piece. Oh, you know what? We could have done dots in the centers of these too with our paintbrush. And I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to put these little middle-sized ones right there. Those should fit just fine. This one's going to get that one. You can move these around. They don't have to stay where I put them. They don't have to stay where I showed you in the beginning. I don't even know where I showed you that they were in the beginning. I am going to glue these little centers on first just to make sure that I get them where I want them. All right, now I got my big flower, and I'm only going to put glue right in the middle because I don't know where it's going to touch on the other one, so I'm not really going to worry about that. Okay, that's where I'm going to put that. And I'm going to press it down until she's stuck. Okay. All right, so there's our flowers. Now let's bring our watering can here in front of us, and let's go ahead and glue the words onto our watering can. Remember, if you get too much glue, just pounce it off on your table cover, your pizza box, so it doesn't spread out onto your project, because once the glue's on there, you can't cover it up. And then just glue those down. Okay. And then we just got to glue the watering can on. So we're going to bring it back, and we're going to look again and see where it's going to go. It's going to go like this. So we know that we got to have glue up in this area here. So we're going to get some glue up in that area. And then press that down. Okay, all right, so there's that. So now we're moving on to our little gems, and we're going to take these out, and these are pretty small, so they're going to be probably hard to hold on to. We're going to take one, and we're just going to put a dot of hot glue on the back. Be careful you don't burn yourself. And then we're just going to do like a little line of sprinkles, like it's water coming out of our watering can. Just like that. That is so cute. All right, and then the next thing we have to do is our green moss. Stuff is kind of messy. Not all of it will stick. So just keep that in mind. You're just gonna pull it apart. Just let me see if I can get that in the camera, what I'm doing. I just pull it out of the bag. This is too much, so I will make sure that you guys don't have this much so you don't know what to do with it. But pull it apart. I'm gonna try and get rid of some of this because I don't want all of this. There's enough for 2 in here. guys. All right. And then we're gonna take and we're gonna put hot glue on the bottom of our fence. My glue gun is not reaching under the camera, so I will pull this back out and show you. I have to do this in 2 shifts. All right, so you can see I've got glue in a puddle here. I'm gonna take and I'm gonna put my moss up in there and just gather it and push it in to the glue. Do not burn yourselves. The moss should be the barrier between your fingers and the glue. Just gather the moss and push it down. Something's gonna stick to that puddle of glue. All right, I have to pull it back down so I can glue again. Still getting situated in the studio, trying to figure out what's gonna work, so I need a closer outlet next time. All right, I'm gonna bring it back up, and then we're gonna just go ahead and do the same thing. We're just gonna push all of that moss down into that hot glue. All right, and that's it. And then you've got a moss mess to clean up. Okay, so now we got one thing left here we're gonna do, and we are going to, I'm gonna try, I'm not sure how it's gonna work. We might use our super glue for this part. You've got butterflies if you wanna use the butterflies. We gave you a variety. We're not gonna use all of them. I don't wanna use all of them. So just choose, not everyone has the same ones either, but what you're gonna do is you're just gonna bend these so the wings stick up. And then you are either gonna hot glue or super glue. Let's see what happens. I fear that the hot glue is gonna melt it, but it might just be enough to glue them on without melting it. Oh yeah, hot glue works just fine. Just don't make a mess with your hot glue. And again, I'm not gonna use all of my butterflies, but I'm gonna use maybe 3. Okay, so bend them so the wings are sticking up. A little bit of hot glue, you don't need very much because I fear that too much would end up melting it. And let's see, one more, I think. I'm gonna use this guy here. And you can just put your butterflies wherever you want. And I'm gonna stick mine there. Okay, there is your project for April 2025, project number 54. All right, well, this was a fun one, a little bit different. Lots of different media involved in this guy with the little glass gems and the vinyl butterflies and then the moss on the bottom. So super, super cute. There is no hanger on this. It's just a leaner, so you'll just prop this up against something. I hope you guys really like this project. Melissa scored again with another idea, so thanks, Melissa. All right, guys, we'll see you next month. And thanks for your patience while we got moved into the new studio and had to skip a couple of videos. We'll see you soon.